Barely. Let me
Barely.
turn this up a little.
There you go. Barely hear myself, which is not
Um,
necessarily a bad thing, but okay, that's better. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
turn that. Okay. Testing,
All right.
testing.
Alrighty then.
Episode 3.
So 3.
Oh yeah,
Here we go.
we got the original backdrop back
Yeah.
from episode 1. If you guys have noticed.
My tapestry
Yep.
made its way home for the podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Mental health, y'all. Another deep topic, right? So
Hell yeah.
we want to start with this.
Why don't you take it away? Talk about what mental health means to you.
What mental health means to me.
Hmm.
Um, so as I mentioned before in many, or well, not many podcasts, but in our past podcasts, I have a slew of mental health issues and diagnoses. But mental health to me is, I think, being mindful of uh, good mental health, I guess, right? Or taking care of your mental health is being mindful of your triggers and what sets you off, and being aware of your moods and your behaviors. So, I guess I can talk about like my history with mental health. So, I think since I was like a teenager or like a preteen, I struggled with anxiety and depression. Um, it wasn't until later when I was an adult that I realized it was from like trauma. Um, and I didn't really know much about it, in those years because you're young, everything's new. And then, my parents just thought, it's teenage hormones, it'll even out. And there's truth to that, but also I think for me personally it was deeper because of trauma and just not taking care of my mental health or knowing how to at the time. So, I have a grocery list of mental health diagnoses, depression, anxiety, bipolar type 2. So there's bipolar type 1 and bipolar type 2. Type 2 is more depressive episodes than manic episodes, if you don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then I have hypomanic cycling. So like I don't have full
Mm,
on mania, but I have like it's more like a depressed mania. Um yeah, it's weird. I
mm,
actually didn't get diagnosed with anything until my 20s
interesting.
when I was going through drug drug history. So my drug journey. Um, and then I have ADHD, and I didn't get that diagnosed till I was like 27. 'Cause it's severely underdiagnosed for women because we show it in different ways than males do.
Mm,
That's a whole other topic. And then I also have BPD. I got diagnosed in 2019 with borderline personality disorder. We'll kind of go into that as we exchange our stuff. It's kind of a long story, and
mhm,
it's a personality disorders are kind of interesting to me in general because a lot of people can exhibit. It's like a spectrum. Like a lot of people can exhibit certain symptoms of or personality traits of those disorders, but not actually have it. And I actually
mhm.
have BPD, so there's differences. I don't like when people are like, "Oh, I'm so borderline." Da, da, da. It's like you might have tendencies, but it doesn't mean you have it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of self-diagnosing has been a thing lately. Have you seen
Hmm.
that shit? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, go see a fucking doctor. Because it's not cool to have a disorder.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying it's wrong to have one or it's bad to have one. I'm just saying like it's just kind of damaging and it's kind of
Kind of takes away from everybody else that has something or
yeah.
like legit. Because yeah, I think yeah, it might be something for attention or something that where people are like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm kind of falling in, and it seems like everybody nowadays has something, and maybe it kind of goes in with society or like with how we're living as humans now, how it's like completely different than when we were like living, 50, 60 years ago where it wasn't so chaotic or crazy. We didn't have the internet. Um, that could be something that goes into it and why so many people are getting diagnosed with that, or getting diagnosed with something. And then, yeah, I kind of want to touch on what you said about like when you were 19 or 20 and you just started kind of getting into drugs and stuff. And that's when you were like diagnosed with uh, the A and B. Um,
Bipolar.
yeah,
Mhm.
bipolar. Do you think that um, doing drugs consistently kind of like accelerates your maybe predispositions, or maybe you have like one or two things that could be looked at as bipolar, but do you think like continual drug use kind of amplifies that?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to touch on because there's when you're doing drugs, obviously it's going to alter your brain chemistry, and especially if your mind's not fully developed too, that plays a role. There's so many things because mental health is so abstract and vague, and then you have substance use disorders and and drugs, and that we all know it's science. It alters your brain chemistry and rewires your brain and affects your brain. It damages your brain. So I definitely, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar, it made sense at the time, but now where I'm at, I'm kind of like, was I really bipolar? Because they also diagnosed me at the time too with schizoaffective disorder, which is basically bipolar on steroids.
Oh
Has
shit.
like schizophrenic tendencies.
Mhm.
So but it was like, no, I was a heavy meth user, and like,
Your actions on meth or your behavior on meth would kind of correlate to that diagnosis. Yeah.
yeah, I almost got sent to state hospital because of that diagnosis and my behavior. And I had to tell the DE, the designated examiner, they're people that work for the state that come and evaluate you to see if you're mentally well to be released from the mental hospital, or you need further care, or you need to go to state for long term care. And I told them, like, no, I'm a heavy meth user. I had pause, which is post acute withdrawal symptoms. And one of those symptoms is auditory and visual hallucinations and suicidal ideation and um, suicidal thoughts and stuff. So, um, yeah. So when I, got clean time under my belt, I got reevaluated many years later, and I still got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So, and then ADHD was tacked on, and the BPD. So, I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not advising people to pick and choose what their diagnoses are. But for me, I really resonated with the ADHD diagnosis and the BPD because those felt the truest to me in my behavior, like before I started doing drugs, when I was doing drugs, and then after I got clean, and even now. So
Hmm.
yeah. Oh, and
Interesting.
PTSD as well, which is post traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're gonna do an episode on trauma and kind of touch base with that and uncover that. But yeah, those definitely resonated with me as well. So the schizoaffective one, I was like, no, no, I don't hear or see things.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really have paranoia. It's mainly and so with borderline personality disorder, one of the symptoms of that disorder too is paranoia, but it's mainly like just extreme intense fear of like my partner or my friends like gonna abandon me or has cheated on me or whatever. And that with a personality disorder, it's like that. It's more like you need therapy. It's not like you can't treat it with medication.
Hmm.
So more cognitive, um, behavioral, mindful types of therapy to kind of combat symptoms of personality disorders, especially borderline personality disorder. So, but medication helps for sure. I'm
Hmm.
a big advocate for medication to treat, mental health disorders. I feel it's necessary and needed. I think it's just as important as like physical health as well. So, but I wanted you to
Hmm.
kind of like share your perspective on like men's mental health because I know there's varying differences between. I mean, there's a stigma and there's lots of that with mental health in general, but I know there's like a unique stigma against men's mental health.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely undiagnosed. Like if guys do have something, we're kind of in a state of like, oh yeah, no, we're just not going to talk about it. We're going to bury our emotions deep, deep, deep down. And yeah, I think a lot of it's just not talked about. There's a societal stigma against men opening up and feeling and being vulnerable because naturally we're supposed to be the protectors and you know basically making sure everybody's okay and like we're okay, everything's fine. And I think that leads to a lot of the high suicide rates in men, high prison rates in men. um, a lot more men are just kind of going under the radar and not actually uh, treating stuff. And I think I think it definitely is one of those societal things where it's kind of looked frowned upon, like, oh, you have something that kind of limits your ability to be a protector or to be a leader, and have a role in society. So, and I think it's fucked, so it definitely leads to a lot of the problems that we see. um and for me, like personally, I don't think I necessarily have anything too crazy. I'm not um or anything like really out there. um, I've experienced depression. I've experienced crazy euphoric highs outside of substances, and I've had the paranoia, um, probably bouts of anger here and there, but I always felt like I've had a fairly good understanding, more so now, of like why I'm feeling certain ways, and never let that get get me too bad. So I've always just been trying to like, if life's going up and down, life's kind of a roller coaster. You're gonna experience real highs and real lows, but if you try your best to kind of stay in that good medium, um, then you don't let the highs affect you too much, and you get too out there, and you don't let the lows affect you too much, and you get too down and depressed. Because I think for me, like with depression, it was like the more that I thought about something and the more that I made myself feel bad about something, the longer that emotion persisted. And for me, is like I never wanted to feel that way, so I was like, okay, I have to like mentally get myself out of this, or I have to go talk to somebody, or be like, hey, like I'm feeling this certain way, and then I'd like feel better, kind of get that off my chest, sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's just really important to stay in that medium thing. Um, I probably have a little bit of ADHD. I have what was it? It was Adderall. Like I did get prescribed Adderall, but I don't think it was real because I wanted Adderall and it was pretty easy to get. So I was like, oh yeah, I can't focus on shit, and I was
So
like,
many people do that
I
shit.
was like, because I think either you or somebody gave me Adderall, and it was back when I was knocking doors and traveling a bunch, and I remember we were doing this event somewhere, and I had taken like half an Adderall, like 10 milligrams or something, and it was like supercharged through the whole day. So I had like my best day in sales. I was killing it, and then I didn't really have any, withdrawal, or I didn't have any kind of like uh, serotonin syndrome where you kind of like fall down or whatever. I didn't have any drop. So I was like, okay, cool. Like this is really cool. I can just like take this. It's kind of like a nootropic or whatever. It just stimulates your brain, and you're able to talk and think real fast, and everything's just very, uh, you know, like
Go, go, go.
go go go. You know. So yeah, I mean, I little bits there. Like, yeah, I don't think anybody can focus, and I think it's just kind of with society where we have these phones and internet and
Mhm.
you know, Instagram, and it's like there's so many photos and videos out there, and they're all meant to capture your attention for 4 or 5 seconds, and then that's it. And then, I think
Sure.
that's where it kind of leads a lot to us being ADHD, or maybe that's why there's so many more ADHD diagnoses nowadays. Um, and it scares me with the newer generation, um, like with my cousins and nieces and stuff growing up now, where they're very, very involved in their phones. And I'm just like, man, what kind of effect is that going to have on them when they get older? Are
Mhm.
they going to be like, is that just going to be a thing? You know, because I remember going through school and it was like, a few kids here and there. That was kind of like, it was still kind of new with ADHD and that sort of thing. But, a lot of it's just kids need to go out and play. They need to interact with other kids. Having them sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day is not natural, you know. And then you have a boring teacher to top it off. Of course, that kid's going to be like, fucking get me out of here. This is ridiculous.
Or it's a topic that they're not interested in.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that too. It's like, who the fuck cares about, I mean, I care about like, history and shit.
Economics.
Economics is cool, but like most kids, most people don't like care. Yeah, math, fuck out of here. We all got calculators
GTFO.
now. We don't need to learn multiplication when we got friggin' calculator on our phone.
True. True.
So, yeah, yeah, I kind of think a lot of that goes into it, and yeah, so that's kind of my experience, kind of what I think about that. So,
Okay. I think our like as a society or a country, our view on mental health or how we treat mental health disorders and issues sucks ass. If I'm being honest. Like it's treated like a secondary or like a offhanded thing. Like it's it's pretty bad. And coming from working in places like psychiatric hospitals, I've been inpatient as a patient in psychiatric hospital, and I've worked in psychiatric hospitals, and our system, how we treat people, struggling with mental health disorders, medication, stigmas, all of it is just it's shitty on a
mhm.
grand scale, on a macro level.
Yeah, I think doctors are really more just like, what's the diagnosis? What's the medication I can give you to fix this?
Mhm.
A lot of times people just need to have conversations and talk about stuff, and they wouldn't have this like built up emotions that lead to chronic disorders and stuff. But it's like, and then the stigma of being on like medication too, and then that has an effect on your mental, where you're like, oh, I am crazy because I have to take this, when in reality you might not have needed that if you just had somebody to talk to or somebody to open up to, or some decent like therapy to work through your trauma or past stuff. um so I think that has a play in it. It's not 100%, there's nothing that fixes all.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there's a couple things there. But yeah, continue with that. There's not a lot of like resources and stuff to help people that need it.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the state that we live in, Idaho. Like I said, give it the program, Idaho. Like the fuck. But well, here's the thing. Like mood disorders, bipolar, things like that. That's a chemical imbalance in your brain, like ADHD, stuff like that. So like your brain's chemistry and wiring is not functioning at a level that's stable or that is functional, and it varies. That's why I say mental health is abstract and it's very vague. So it's like what are the black and white answers? There isn't. It's
Mhm.
a lot of gray, you
Well, it's
know.
the DS, what is it, DSM-5?
Yeah.
Is that's kind of like the book
Hmm.
that all the therapists and stuff kind of go off of, right?
Hmm.
That's the big one.
Yeah, that is. But even then, because as humans we're so complex.
Hmm.
We all come from different walks of life, different cultures, different, ethnicities, and different beliefs, right? Especially in focusing on mental health. So there's no right or wrong answer, but there's no clear cut answers or solutions either. There's do this and that. There's like, it's kind of like I felt when I started my mental health journey, like taking meds and going to therapy, actually trying to improve my mental health and figure out what the fuck's going on. I kind of felt like a guinea pig, or like a lab rat, because I was taking all these different medications. They actually put me on Prozac. That was one of the first mental health psychiatric meds I ever taken in my life, and it actually made me more depressed and drove me to relapse at that time. I actually tried to commit suicide as well.
What
Uh,
do you think that was?
I don't know. I don't know if it was medication or pause because I was newly clean as well, newly in recovery too. A lot of traumatic things that I was numbing, I didn't realize were coming up too. So I think it was like a combination of all the things. And I don't know if that medication affected my brain in a way that it was not intended to do, but it did. Because
Mm.
you see the commercials on TV for all kinds of meds, not just psychiatric
Mhm.
meds, may cause suicidal ideation, coma, death.
Yeah. And it's like a
Like,
it's like an eczema medication or
mhm,
something, and it's insane because America and New Zealand are the only two countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical companies to have advertisements on TV. And like even New Zealand's like extremely risked, like or extremely like controlled. Like they're not as open as they are here. So
mm,
um, yeah, pharmaceutical companies definitely are fucked, and they have a lot of
mhm,
money. They're a profit motive entity. They're not necessarily for helping people. Um, you know,
100%.
they have the veil or the guise to help people, but it's all profit. It's a publicly traded company, so they're looking at what their shareholders are saying, and they're doing what's in the best interest of their shareholders, not the people taking the product. Um, and so it's crazy because it's like 5 or 6 years ago, people were like, "Oh yeah, fuck pharmaceutical companies," and then during COVID and everything, it was a huge flip, and Pfizer and Moderna were all like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
like they're the good guys now. They're trying to save us from this COVID stuff. That's a experimental vaccine and all this stuff." And I'm like, "This is crazy. I don't know where this flip come. I don't believe it." And if you
Mhm.
didn't know, a little tidbit, and then we can change topic. But should
Okay.
say it, but like Pfizer has the biggest criminal fine in the history of the world, and it's like billions of dollars. And it was over this. I think it was like some sort of eczema or something medication that they were giving out, and I'll have to look it up. But they killed like 60,000 people directly due to
What?
that. Yeah, you don't
I didn't
hear
even
about it.
hear about
They
that.
killed
Yeah.
60,000 people. They made like let's say they made about $10 billion. This is just rough figures. They paid like 3 billion in fines. They had maybe another bill or two in R&D, and so they still made like 4 or 5 billion off of this medication. And I'm like, this is insane. How can we trust these companies to have our best interests in mind when they just get away scot free and their medication directly involved in 60,000 people dying? Yeah, it's crazy. I don't
That's
know.
fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I have my qualms about big pharma. Fuck big pharma. But also, like, on the other side of the coin, um, when I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 27 and they put me on Adderall, like, it changed my fucking life. Like, I, before I started taking the medication, I studied ADHD like incessantly. I was so hyper focused on it because I wanted to know everything about it and truly understand it, so I could get a good grasp on what I was diagnosed with. Same with borderline, same with bipolar, same with all the diagnoses that I got throughout the years. And so when I started this medication, I was like, holy shit, like it made sense because like I had a binge eating disorder. Of course my focus sucked ass, but there were other things too that ADHD does, how it does affect you, that's not common or talked about commonly, like the binge eating disorder. I didn't know that ADHD and binge eating was like a common coupling. Knew nothing about it. I knew it was like hyperactivity, lack of focus, the standard things, but there was so much more. And when I started this medication, like I I was more focused, obviously. I lost weight and I wasn't starving myself, but I wasn't binge eating anymore. I was more motivated. Like even my mood was improved. And
Hmm.
I don't abuse Adderall. I don't. Maybe back in the day, like when I was a teenager, recreationally I did, but I was abusing all the things back then. But now, as an adult, and I'm really trying to understand myself and figure out my mental health. Sometimes I forget to take it. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's good and bad with medications, especially if you have, a chemical imbalance. But I think the whole it's just a process. I think that's the most frustrating part for most people is trying all these different medications and trying to figure out what works for them, what helps them be more productive or happier or healthier, and that's that's kind of the shittier or more frustrating part of taking care of your mental health and figuring out, what works for you. And
Mm,
then, it's never fun to accept or receive a diagnosis, oh, you're depressed or you got PTSD, because then it's like, fuck, then I have to uncover this
mhm.
and figure out how to live with this. And if you have a lot of trauma or, your brain's just chemically fucked, like it's very hard, especially if you're like trying to get off drugs or you have a substance use issue. So, yeah, it's a process. It's hard. It's hard on all ends, and I could see why mental health is such a difficult thing to combat and deal with. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it, and yeah, it sucks. Probably, I can only imagine it sucks probably being diagnosed with something because then your view of that is like, oh, you know, I'm damaged or I'm wrong or I'm something like, and yeah, it sucks having to like try to go through all these medications to make sure that this is what's gonna uh, fix or help. And it should always be temporary. It shouldn't be like a lifelong thing. Um, but I think there just definitely needs to be more research into it, more research into the causes. Um, I kind of want to segue into like psilocybin because I think that actually helps with. There's been a lot of studies and stuff that come out, but I think that actually helps with PTSD
Hmm.
tremendously. Personally, like within my own life, I was talking about this last night, but like when I was in like a dark place drinking a lot, I had a couple mushroom trips, and it really felt like it rewired my brain to where I was able to like forgive myself and not feel so bad about stuff I've done in the past. And then I think like I feel like those are almost like pivotal times in my life where I've done acid or mushrooms, and it's like my life is a little bit better after that. In a way of just looking at the world and seeing the world differently. And it's a natural substance. I think it's something that correlates more with nature. We're a nature, we're animal beings with a consciousness sort of deal.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, having some natural remedies, sunlight, being outside,
Hmm.
friendship, community are super important. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of why we're seeing a lot of this stuff now is because society is separating us from our natural way of being with raising raising kids and families in groups and communities and being connected with our loved ones. Um, and yeah. So I think there needs to be more research into psilocybin, into acid, LSD, MDMA. Some of those times on MDMA, you just feel so close and connected with people, and you're just like, "Oh my god, this is great! I can talk about anything, and it doesn't affect me emotionally, and I am feeling super great." And I feel that's almost really good because then it helps you really just talk about stuff in a open perspective. You don't have any walls up. You're just really free and connected, and yeah. So I think that there definitely needs to legalize all them drugs. I don't care.
Legalize
You
all them
know,
drugs. I don't know about all them drugs,
not
but
all. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
meth and heroin.
I don't
I'm
think.
sure there's something there, but
Well, and we talked about this a little bit in our addiction episode. Like we criminalize addicts, and when they really need help,
mhm,
not punishment.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And also, like, we talk about accountability too. Like, I'm not just saying, oh yeah, because they have an addiction or addicted to a certain substance that they get off totally scot free. I'm not saying that either, but there's a problem there. And it's not just the addiction itself. There's trauma. There's mental health issues. Like, it's deeper than that. And I think how society goes about it, as I said before in the episode, was like they just treat them like shit, like criminals, and it's just not working. It's just making it worse, honestly. More and more people are dying, committing suicide, overdosing, and it's very prevalent. Like you can't deny it, you can't hide it. So something needs to change for sure. I did a lot of research on, because I'm in grad school, and I did a lot of research on trauma and PTSD, And there was a study I found. It was in Brazil. They did a study on a few people that had severe PTSD, uh, mainly specifically sexual trauma, and they used MDMA as a substance to use to treat their PTSD symptoms. The results from that study were pretty positive. I'm not condoning drug use either. I'm just saying there are alternative methods, and that I think they need to be more researched on and studied for sure. I agree with that. But also, I think about my addict mind and addiction and stuff because I've done so many substances, so many, and I get addicted to everything. So I think about like, what if we did have that here in the States? Like, how would that look like?
Mm.
Even if it was controlled, we have the opioid crisis,
Yeah. Yeah.
Adderall, like
Fentanyl.
whatever. Yeah, fentanyl. Fentanyl's so bad. Oh my god.
Mhm.
But yeah, talk about drugs a lot, but go figure.
Goes hand in hand.
Yeah, go figure. But yeah, mental health. I don't know. I So trauma is a chronic long-term thing and therapy for that is long-term, and it sucks because even if you have insurance or you're semi-functioning in life and you need trauma, based therapy, it's expensive
Mhm.
because it's long-term. A lot of companies have what's called EAP programs, it's employee assistance programs, but you only get so many sessions. So if you are dealing with a trauma related issue that's affecting your mental health, like they're not going to cover that, or it's not enough sessions to be, effective. So that was an issue I've struggled with. I have been in and out of so many counselors, in and out of therapy since I was 14. It's just been very unwavering and unstable because like if you don't come from money or have, the monetary resources to do it, like what can you do?
Yeah, you're SOL.
Yeah, and that's a problem because we stated before, a lot of mental health issues are stem from trauma. Um, a lot of addiction and substance use disorders are based from trauma,
Mhm.
and a lot of people have trauma, and that's
Yeah, and if you grow up in a more like not affluent or a more poverty stricken area, you're more likely to have some sort of traumatic event happen. Like if you're growing
Mhm.
up in, South Central LA where there's gang violence and shootings and all this stuff and you're around that all the time, you're gonna like there's a percentage of like there's a higher possibility of you going down that path as well, just because it's an environment. Now it's not 100% because we all have the ability to choose where we want to go or what we want to do. And some people just, have gotten dealt a worse hand. And, I don't think that, I mean, I think we need to look at that too and be like, okay, well, we need to invest more into this area so it's not as bad. We need to invest more into infrastructure, into jobs, into mental health, into um, drug addiction, because we don't want these things to continue because they all make society bad for everyone else. Um, and just looking at it from a human perspective, it's like this is this person couldn't this person didn't have any choice where they were born or where they were raised, and we still need to have that compassion for other people and be like, yo, this person needs help. We need to help them. So, and then in doing so, in doing helping people, you feel good, you feel happy, and it's good when you help people. So,
an exchange for sure.
yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was like stigmas against certain mental health diagnoses. So I've worked in psychiatric hospitals and I've worked in healthcare for many years, and I met, so many different types of people, different walks of life. Um, I have my own mental health disorders as well, and a big mental health disorder that gets stigmatized a lot or judged a lot or gets the eye roll a lot is borderline personality disorder. And I'm bringing it up again because I think now it's budding to be talked about, the stigmas around it. A lot of people are very ignorant to this disorder or don't have a lot of patience or understanding of it because the behaviors of someone with BPD are very intense and damaging and some would say attention seeking. And it's not so much like attention seeking, it's more so like I am hurting so badly in this moment or I'm going through something. I'm trauma responding so hard like I need help. Even if to the other person it seems small or asinine or ridiculous or dramatic, but like I don't think a lot of people understand unless they have it is like when we're experiencing an emotional moment, like it does feel that real to us. It is that intense to us.
Mhm.
And it's not just in our heads, like we feel it in our bodies. Like it's like a panic attack kind of thing when you trauma respond. So um I think a lot of people are very insensitive to a lot of different mental health disorders. I think a lot of people are very judgmental with people that have mental health issues or are addicted to substances. And I just, I want to be another voice out there that's like, no, I get what you're going through, and it is real and it's valid and it's a real fucking thing. I've done a lot of work with my own personality disorder. I've noticed, in my relationships, how I've treated people, how I've treated myself, how, because everybody has an internal voice, that
Mhm.
dialogue that's like, some would say it's your conscience, some would say it's, your inner child, some would say it's like, your guardian angel, whatever. And it's that little voice that's like, hey, how you
You're
doing? Not doing too well, are you? You
you're
probably
fucking up.
shouldn't do that.
You're fucking up right now.
Or hey, you deserve better than that.
Yeah.
Or what, be kinder to yourself, or like what the fuck are you doing?
Mhm.
Like, I think some people's internal dialogue are louder than others, or some can ignore it better than others, but yeah, it's interesting to me. Yeah, it's definitely a combination of things: medication, therapy, self-awareness, how much you understand about, your mental health and how you behave. I think it's so important. That's why I'm like fascinated with mental health and human behavior because I'm just trying to understand myself and understand others and the world around me. So it kind of formed into like a survival thing
Mhm.
and a deeper understanding of life kind of thing because my mental health since I remember, since I was like preteen, has been shit. And the thing that helped me keep going was like having a really deep understanding of why this makes me feel this way, why people do this because of that, and connecting the dots of that. Because I have attempted suicide about 7 times in my life, and it was due to a lack of understanding my mental health and my trauma. It was a lack of control over, certain situations I was in or experiences that I had. And it was also just like not having the coping skills or the emotional, regulation ability to deal with my emotions and thoughts. So
Mhm.
it does take work on your part. It's your brain, it's your life. It you are in control of yourself, even if you don't feel that way, or you've been in situations or experiences where you didn't have control or someone took that from you. But at the end of the day, I think it's just trying to understand why things happened to you the way that they did, and trying to understand why you reacted the way that you did, or why you struggle or think or behave the way that you do. So
Mhm.
that's my take on that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's what we're here for, right? That's why
Yeah.
this podcast. Um, yeah, I know that you mentioned that you didn't really have like chronic or long term or like, consistent mental health issues. But I guess I just want you to share more about that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I just don't see I haven't had anything
Tell me
like
what it's like being normal, Kyle.
I don't
That's what I wanna know.
know.
How's it
um,
like having normal mental health? It's a rarity.
yeah. Oh, it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Ah, dude, wake up in a piss excellence.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
always happy.
Always happy.
Kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I get stressed. I mean, for me, it's like stress, I think. I get stressed out. Normal stuff. I think it just stems from having good, like, good influences in my life growing up. Um, and I never really had like anything bad happen. I mean, there was some crazy stuff here and there, but um, it wasn't anything that really affected me, or at least I hope not, to the point of like being diagnosed with something or having it affect my life in a certain way. Um, I think a lot of it would be just things I've done to myself or things I've done to other people, and then that caused me to feel bad or feel like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have done that. And there were times where I'd just be, not the best friend or not the best boyfriend. Um, and I grow and I learn from that, and I'm hopefully doing better now. Um, and that kind of stuff would fuck me up more because I would just feel bad and guilty, and I'd be like, oh fuck, like what kind of person am I? Am I, I know I'm not this type of person, but like, why the fuck did I do that? And yeah, it takes like inner work. It takes inner like awareness and being like, okay, my actions were this way because, you know, somebody else in my life did this to me when I was young or when I was in a vulnerable position or something. Um, and I felt like I just never got that far. And maybe that's just like with kind of the men's side of it too, where they just don't want to admit anything wrong. I've had people tell me, ex-girlfriends, oh yeah, you should go to therapy uh for stuff. Like maybe I might be a little impersonal sometimes or not like completely aware of how other people were feeling. And I was like, well, I felt like I was fairly like, empathetic to situations and understanding and stuff. I just can't relate 100% to what everybody's going through. Um, I've thought about it's called depersonalization disorder when I was real young because I thought about like how like I'm not that connected to people or I'm not connected to like the world um that much. Somebody brought it up. I can't remember who brought it up, but I was like, huh, that makes sense in a way. I just maybe that's my defense mechanism is not connecting or not being vulnerable, and then that's kind of like skirted me out of maybe some trauma that I would have had if I was maybe a little bit more involved or a little bit more like connected. Um, so that's probably all that I can really think of. It's not, it definitely takes like vulnerability and understanding and I think bravery more than anything to be like, I have this problem and I need to fix it and I need to stay the course on that. Um, because I think a lot of people don't. They might just be like, "Oh yeah, no, this happened, but I'm fine. Like it's okay." Like you know, yeah, I had
Minimalizing it.
minimalizing it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
had a cousin when I was growing up um, over in Oregon, and he went out to the military and he served his term in the Marines, I think, and did some fucked up shit over there, like that he was told to do. It wasn't like he was a fucked
Mm,
up person. He was a really good human being when I knew him, and like super loving, super awesome. But when he came back, he was definitely still that person, but it was like there was definitely some more shit on top of that was going on, like some deep personal guilt or
mhm,
trauma of what he went through and experienced over there, and a lot to do with like living like death and shit like that. And he ended up killing himself like pretty soon after that. He had a wife, a couple kids, um and but he was a really good person. I wish he had gotten the help he needed. That affected me in a little way. Obviously I was really like sad about that. It was, he was a really good human being, and the world definitely needed him. Um, but yeah, it just sucks because I feel like he could have gotten the help he needed through different treatments or, a couple good, like, I don't know how it all works. I haven't had that experience, but I feel like he could have had that, if he got the help he would have gotten, or there wasn't this huge stigma against men seeking out therapy or treatment, he probably would have been here with us today. So um, yeah, really, really sucks. So
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
That's hard. That's hard. Kind of relating that because you were talking about men's mental health. My dad was in the military, and he had to do a bunch of fucked up shit over there too when he was in the military, and he had a lot of childhood trauma too. On top of it, but he was a drug addict and alcoholic too, and he committed suicide in 2016 as well, like about 6 months after my son was born. And uh, it sucks on this topic of suicide because it's like, you think the woulda, shoulda, coulda, or what if this happened, or if he only had this, then maybe, what I've realized is when people make that decision to end their life, that's there's very little that can be done. There's a lot that can be done, prior, but I think once the decision's made, just in my experience, and I could be totally fucking wrong, but I've lost a few people to suicide. I've attempted myself. It's like once that decision's made, it's happening, and it sucks. And what I want to do, and what I try to focus on, because I do work in mental health and stuff, it's like pulling people back from making that final decision, showing them, the worth of and value of their life. Something to look forward to. I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard one for me. So I'm not really being too diplomatic about it right now. But
Yeah,
um, fuck.
it is a tough one.
Yeah.
If only we just stopped sending people to go kill people more. That would help.
Or stop being a piece of shit parent,
Yeah,
fucking up your kids.
yeah,
There's so many things. We could be like, well, if this didn't happen, or we could take away this, change that, then it'd be all daisies and rainbows. But unfortunately, this is life, and this is fucked up shit happens, and
mhm,
it's how you deal with it. Um, and it is resources too. So yeah, that sucks. I also wanted to piggyback on what you said earlier about having a strong sense of self and self awareness. My problem was until I realized that was one of the biggest problems I had when I've been on my mental health journey, and my mental health journey is every day, but a big one for me was I had no sense of self. I had no fucking identity. I had no idea who the fuck I was. And outwardly, and people would tell me, "Well, you're this and that, and you seem so confident, and you're unique, and blah blah blah." But like inwardly, I really didn't know who the fuck I was. I had no relationship with myself. I had no self love. I had poor self care. I had poor self value, and that was a really big thing for me. And when you lack that, you lack boundaries. You lack what's good for you, what's not. You get in really toxic or abusive relationships or situations. You put yourself in, risky situations that get you further traumatized or hurt. Um, you, you, I definitely put myself in places where get beaten down more and fall harder into the big old deep pit of despair and what was me,
yeah,
right? Because I had no value in myself because I didn't know who the fuck I was. And that's another BPD symptom too, is having a lack of identity or sense of self. And it's fleeting. It's back and forth all the time. The older I get, the better I get at identifying with myself and building a relationship with myself. And to be honest, especially the last year and a half, 2 years, I've definitely have made groundbreaking, for me at least, groundbreaking strides with that, and it's helped me immensely. I think being a mom too, um, definitely uh, forces me to, further do the work and be a better person, and be more self-aware, be more self-identifying, and continue to build that relationship with myself. Because if I don't have a good grasp of who I am, or I don't have a decent relationship with myself, how the fuck am I going to have good relationships with other people? How am
Mhm.
I going to know when to lay a boundary down, or to step back and reflect and change behavior, or like, parent
Mhm.
in a healthy manner if I don't have that relationship with myself? So, if my mental health is in a shit pile, how can I be a good person and be a good mom and be a productive member of society? And I think a lot of people don't realize that, oh, because you're sad, that's not an excuse. It's like, it's more than that. It's more than just being sad or suicidal
Mhm.
or whatever. It's a total sense of loss of self. It's feeling like a ghost in reality, like you don't exist. And you do, like, physically,
Mhm.
consciously, but subconsciously, it's just so much deeper than that. People don't realize that, or take the time to understand that, and I think people need to be more aware of that as well.
Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I think for guys, a lot of the times it's having a sense of purpose. So if you
Mhm.
don't have a sense of purpose, or you're like, what direction am I going? It's yeah, it leads you down a dark road, because then you're influenced by evil forces, or other people, or the evil forces and other people, whatever. Um, and you're just trying to find like a way out, and sometimes you don't realize like that's all you need is just to have have some sort of direction or purpose, and kind of a goal. That's huge, I think, for men particularly, because like I always, not necessarily always, but I like having stuff to do. I like running a company, and I like helping people. And for me, the last few years, it's been my sense of purpose, and it's what's been super beneficial to me. Um, because I'm like, I never felt like I had like a direction or a purpose before, like maybe with music, like that was kind of my thing. And that's actually been very, very therapeutic for me. That's probably helped me more than anything, is listening to music or playing music. For me, when I was younger, if I was in a stressful situation with my household or something, I would just go and like recluse back and play my guitar for a few hours, and then I would just feel so good. It was an escape for me. And then as I got older, it was more uh, hanging with friends, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed. That was a big escape.
Mhm.
And yeah. And then as I got older, I was trying to figure out like, what am I going to do? I tried so many different things. Looking into, you know, other avenues. Like I had an avenue from like my family. They, had a company I could have taken over, but I was like, that's not really. I don't feel like that's my purpose, or something that I'm really passionate about. And so for me, it's like music, and that's always been something really close to me. And then now it's the construction field and building stuff and creating stuff, and I feel it goes hand in hand, because like I love creating music, and I love creating projects for people and providing opportunities. So I'm like, yeah, I'm really, really thankful and appreciative of that, and for finding that, and just giving myself some responsibility. It's like I get
Mhm.
to do this. And it's like it's all on me now, and I think that's just what I was missing before. Was just I needed some personal responsibility. I needed to go down and like have nothing at all, and then be like, what the fuck am I doing? And then just build something out of nothing. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, this is really fucking beautiful, because it's all on me. It's my responsibility to make shit happen now, and I love that. I love that. It definitely gives me a huge sense of purpose. Makes me really happy every day. So I love it. Um, so yeah, yeah, absolutely. Purpose. Find your
Fuck
purpose.
yeah.
Get outside. Do something.
Go outside.
Go outside.
Be in the sunshine. Do some
Sunshine.
yoga. You'll be fine.
Do some
Fix all your
yoga.
mental health issues.
Yes.
But it does help. Like
Mhm,
it's a it's multiple faucets of things. When regarding
mhm,
mental health, improving mental health, it's depending on what you're diagnosed with, medication, it's therapy, it's community, it's activity, it's sense of purpose, it's pushing yourself to do things. Going outside, yes, it does help. Like I said, it's not there's not a cure all. There's not one method or even like two or three that's gonna solve all these, mental health problems, solve all your problems, but it is definitely possible and it's definitely manageable. And it takes time and error,
trial.
trial and error. There we go. Words are hard sometimes. Um, to figure it out. Um, And then, on the other side of the coin, like just be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know where their mental health is at. You don't know where they're at in their life journey. So just like be kind, be empathetic when you can, be understanding, uh, be non-judgmental. Kindness goes a long fucking way. And if we're more mindful about how we treat others, like imagine how much better our world would be if everybody did that. I know,
Yeah.
big dreams, big ideals, but it's so true. Because my sense of purpose is helping people too. I work in healthcare. I've worked in healthcare for years, as I said before, and just seeing someone come in on their worst fucking day of their life, just hit their bottom or just in a really dark place, and then seeing them day by day improve, learn, grow, come back to themselves, and or figure it out or get on that journey, it's such a beautiful thing to witness. And I'm so glad I get to be a part of that. I'm so glad I get to witness and experience that. And that for me is my sense of purpose. And, watching my son grow, being a mom as well, being a parent, I know saved a lot of people's lives too, gave them a sense of purpose. I'm not saying get knocked up or knock somebody up to find your
Go
sense of
have kids.
purpose,
Go get knocked
right?
up.
Or stay clean or whatever. But like it's just seeing that and experiencing that and knowing for your own journey, like that's what it is. It's so cool to see in other people. So yeah,
Hmm,
it's hard out there, folks, but we're all in this together. So
yep. We're all spinning around on this rock together. We
hmm
don't know what the fuck we're doing while we're here.
just my
We're
hands.
just here.
I don't know what's
I
going
don't
on.
know.
But we're here and we'll figure it out. Yeah. So in regards to mental health, just talk to somebody. Talk to
Mhm,
somebody you trust.
good job.
Or if you feel like you have no one you can talk to, write it down. Figure out what you enjoy, brings you joy, fulfillment, and put your heart and soul into it. Um, be self aware in how you treat others too. Be kind. And there are resources. Yeah, there's problems in our society and in our environments and things that happen to us in the past that hurt. We all have wounds of some sort, but you're not alone. You're not alone.
Mhm, that's good. I'm gonna leave this on some really good advice my grandma gave me, which is follow your heart, but take your mind with you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah.
Good job, Grandma.
Thanks, grandma.
Wise
Yep.
words of wisdom right
Words of
there.
wisdom. Yeah, talk to your elders too. They know your grandparents. They know shit. They know shit. They've been around. They've been around the planet or the sun a few more times, so
True.
they know some shit. It's good. Good
True.
stuff.
Yeah, I like
But
it. Yeah, and drink water.
anyway. Drink some fucking water.
Drink some fucking water. Get a dog.
Eat
I don't
some good
know.
food. Yeah, get a pet. Pets are awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta have some pets. I need a pet. I don't know what I'm gonna get yet. Maybe a
emotional
lizard.
support animal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe an emotional support chameleon.
Okay, whatever works for you, man. I have a cat,
Yeah, that works.
so
Yeah, I don't think
yeah.
we're gonna do any animals, dogs or cats here, just because I don't. None of us are here available enough to take
Mm.
care of them. But
Get a cat. They're
cat,
low maintenance.
yeah, I just don't wanna clean up after it.
God, Kyle. All right.
Maybe
Well,
reptile would be cool, or fish, maybe. I don't
well, I
know.
support whatever you decide to
Something.
do. So
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Maddie. Thank you for sharing, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Kyle, and bye.
Bye.